How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Garage Built Baits. I'm your host, Wyatt Buyer Lure Co., all that jazz, all that great stuff. And we have a really cool dude coming on the podcast for this episode. We have James Hatch of Hatch Match Baits, and James makes this really cool silicone goby and very niche bait when he designed it. And some people will be like, "Oh, well, that's just a rip off of like a Mega Bass, like Dark Sleeper or an Agent E or any other of those goby baits." But James solved like a very specific issue that he was having with those baits, and honestly improved on a design. And they're silicone, so they're gonna last you a ton of fish. But anyway, I'm not very good at this intro stuff. As a lot of you guys know, a lot of my podcasts have not had intros with them lately. And so I guess I have to promote myself. So if you want to go check out the main YouTube channel, Buyer Lure Co., you can also check out the videos, Garage Built Baits on the YouTube channel. And if you want to support the channel, you can go down below. There's the Buy Me a Coffee link and stuff like that. That all goes back into the channel. So I hope you enjoy this episode. So, James, tell the people what you do.
Yeah, I'm just a pretty typical fishing nut. Kind of an engineer in my day job, so I love tinkering with tackle. Kind of, started with boring jigs and whatnot, real basic stuff. And, when in some of the more niche scenarios that I'm fishing, like if I encounter stuff that's really just not working quite right, or fisheries I think I understand and I want to try new bait, something I can't find in the market, I've, gotten into pouring some of my own baits, designing my own stuff. Just trying to meet demands. Mostly they just start as personal projects, and then some of them have taken off a little bit. If I've shown them off online, and a lot of people inboxing me and whatnot, and I'm trying to spin this up into a little bit of a side gig, mostly just to get them in people's hands. People seem real excited about, what I'm doing, so hope I can help some other people as well.
Yeah, you have some cool soft plastics that you got working on right now. What kind of engineer are you? Yeah, electrical, civil.
Yeah, I'm mechanical.
Okay.
Um, pretty broad applications, but mechanical by trade.
Yeah, I've worked with like my background is in marketing. That's not what I do right now. But I've worked with like almost every kind of engineer there is. Like,
Oh, cool.
yeah, one of my internships was with electrical engineers, and then another job was with civil engineers, and then one of the factory jobs that I had, I worked a lot with mechanical engineers. So I have this whole broad spectrum of people that I've worked with.
That's pretty neat. Yeah, I started in it's called MEP. It's kind of like construction engineering, a lot of HVAC stuff. And then I did about a year working for a sporting goods company. We did a lot of injection molding. And then I do defense stuff now, working with the Navy.
Oh, that's really cool, dude.
Yeah, it's exciting. I mean, it's limited what I'm allowed to talk about it, but it's definitely my favorite, and I'll be here for a while.
Mm. Um, with the bait that you have right now, you only have, from what I've seen, you only have like the one bait out right now. So let's talk about that because you got like this
Yeah,
goby style soft plastic.
exactly. So I'll do my spiel, and then you can hopefully interrogate me a little bit. So, my favorite fishery in the world, my favorite thing to do is Great Lakes smallmouth fishing. And I find it's kind of a niche market that's not really targeted that much. There's a lot of baits that are kind of repurposed or designed for other fisheries that do really well. It's a unique place. A lot of people, you know, they think of like St. Clair, and that's an example of it. But if you go further north into some of like, Superior, Upper Huron, Lake Michigan, it's just a really unique water quality. I mean, you can see, you know, depends a lot on the wind, but let's say slick calm, it's 40 feet of visibility easily straight down into the water. So the fish are hyper aware. They see everything. If they're in pressured areas, it gets even worse. And more often than not, unless the wind is really an important factor because it's always going to be clear, but the wind kind of gives you that surface distortion, changes the light below a little bit. But when it's calm or when the water's shallow, I really have trouble getting bit on anything above 6-pound line. And a lot of baits really aren't meant to fish on that. I mean, there's some brands recently like Great Lakes Finesse, GLF. They do incredible stuff, really similar fish. I mean, they're 10,000 Islands mostly, St. Lawrence, but that stuff applies all over the Great Lakes watershed. But there's a lot of baits on the market that I feel like are really close and do kind of important stuff. I mean, obviously, 1,000 people have said it. So like my main bait at the moment, it's very dark sleeper-esque. And that is the inspiration. And mostly the reason I wanted to build this is I have a lot of problems with the dark sleeper. Just the profile and the shape and how it fishes it really is incredible at generating bites. And it's really, I think, not optimized for the way I want to fish it. So it gets the bites. That hook is just the main problem. It's incredibly stout. If you fish it on really anything less than 12-pound line, to get a good, people complain that they lose a lot of fish on it. And I think that's because they treat it like a swim bait, like something you can kind of just reel set or like a gentle lift of the rod. And that thing has a flipping jig hook in it. And if you're not cracking them, similar to, I've got some funny clips of me fishing it, like how you have to do it to actually, because it's a thick wire, small gap. You have to really smack them to puncture that through like the upper jaw, which is, they inhale it pretty well. So you're getting deep in that throat. So most of the time I have a lot of trouble even getting bit throwing that heavier tackle. Well, either you throw the heavier tackle, reduce the bites, throw the light tackle, you either break off on the hook set or don't get penetration and lose them on the way to the boat. So the main thing I set out to fix was changing the hook wire in the dark sleeper, and then many other people will complain about the durability. So that's a soft plastic. Everything I make is silicone.
Okay.
So for example, here's the sleeper. If you're going to pull, it's going to rip. Silicone maintains that really soft texture of like some of those less durable Japanese plastics, and it's just, you can stretch it to hell and back. And then I've also got kind of a mesh reinforcing layer around the head, so that's the other area that these will fail. Now this is one, the jig head rips out on the front out of the sleeper as it, the fish teeth kind of scrape up the belly, and then it slips off the jig head. And so this has a mesh layer in the nose that's fitted around the jig head, so you can pull in this as much as you want. Eyes are, technically it's paint, but this kind of paint with silicone actually fuses to the material. So I mean, these don't go anywhere. So doing a lot of kayak fishing, I like carrying less tackle. You could fish one of these. I've had up to 100 fish on a single bait, and short of snapping them off, really, really tough to destroy them. So with that, I've been able to change the hook wire. With the CAD design, like I can scale the sizing pretty easily. 3D printing a mold, silicone injection. I can scale it up to some larger size profiles that you can't really, sleeper doesn't really have. Here's a 4.5-inch. Working on getting a different jig head for this. I'm going to have what I call the lake trout version, which is another really fun thing I love to do on Lake Michigan. You could put an ounce head in this, or 2 ounces, and fish it, somewhere between 60 and 200 feet deep, and those things are fun. So I've got that. I've got, downsize, 2.3. So the sleeper's, it's a Japanese bait fish, as I understand it. It's like I actually don't know the name. So what I've got is a little bit more of a true goby profile, round, fat head, a little less angular. These fins are, being that it's the really soft silicone, they're honestly, they're thinner than the sleeper one. So it's really all about hookup ratio for me on these with the light tackle and getting that hook penetration. Oftentimes I'll cut the fin off, fish it like a tube. generally it's being fished like a tube almost all the time. Um, it swims, obviously it's a swim bait, but it's definitely meant to be near or on the bottom as much as possible. I don't see it replacing other swim baits for me. I've got some other projects to do that, but these are very much a bottom bait, very purpose built for that.
Yeah, it's very specific for like basically what you made it to, which is really cool. I feel like that's where a lot of um, innovation can come from. It's like you have a problem and you're creating a solution for it. In the future, you're going to keep going the silicone route with your other projects.
Yeah, especially for, this is a hobby first and foremost for me, or honestly even more so than a business. It's just a personal project. Whether or not I could sell these, I wanted to fish them, and I have been fishing them, and I'm going to continue to fish them. Really excited for this. I've actually, sooner or later, I'm going to make a little graphic and announce it, but I'm going to be running a contest. Anyone can beat the biggest smallmouth caught on one of my baits. I had to put some kind of prize package. We're at 612 right now.
Oh wow!
So the first person to catch a 7 is going to get something pretty sweet. I'm chasing my first 8. I have not quite got there yet. 7-1 is my best. But those Great Lakes fish is really something special. It's hard to compare. Lost my train of thought. Silicone. Really, it's only suitable for low production volumes. So I think, it drives the cost up too, which is one of the main downsides. I think the value's there because you're getting 4, 5, 6 times as many fish on one bait. But the individual cost, because it's not super well suited for mass production. I'm not looking to go get a factory in China to do these for me anyway. They're going to continue to be made. This is my office. I'm doing this at my desk.
Mm-hmm.
Got all kinds of these suckers pouring and molded up. So silicone is a little bit less, what's the word? Less toxic. There's less fumes. I can do this inside. I think the performance is there, especially for small batches and for myself, like cost regardless. It's just an easier. I could do them a lot cheaper in plastisol. I just don't believe in it. I don't think that's what I want to fish, and I don't see this being some massive business. So keeping it small scale, I think the silicone fits better.
Mm-hmm. Well, especially like you said, it's like, so you pay like $8 for a dark sleeper, or like Z-Man has like their little Goby thing.
Forgot that. That's my other.
Yeah.
Aside from, that Z-Man one has got a little bit of an in-between hook. Not quite as light as mine, not quite as heavy as the sleeper, so it's closer. I do like that. You get the similar stretch of Z-Man. Not quite. You could pull Z-Man to the moon, but this is as much as any rock bass or perch is going to be ripping on your tail or whatever. But totally non-chemically reactive, so you can shove this in your tackle box. Doesn't kink, doesn't melt. That's the other thing I forgot. But go on. Sorry.
Yeah. So like you have like those other ones, but yeah, you're spending like $8. Maybe if you're really unlucky, because like where I'm at, we have pike and stuff like that.
Oh yeah. It was a tail first cast.
Yeah, for sure. And now you're out $8. You're not mending anything back together with that.
Rock bass are the destroyer of. Where are you at?
I'm in South Dakota, like
okay.
up in the Mount Rushmore kind of area.
Very cool.
So like the Z-Man, like the elastomer or like Elastec stuff. Dude, I've been fishing with their micro finesse one, like the BFS. It's like
the shad fries.
Yeah. I was fishing with one of those because it's like a little paddle tail, and just had it on a little jig hook, just like slow reeling it. And dude, I had the tail bitten off by like creek chubs. It was like
That's little. Surprising. It is really thin, so that's hard to prevent. you know,
Mhm.
with any material. That's just a, you know, that small bait is tough to kind of rigidize, but that's unfortunate. That's probably the most durable version of that bait, but not much you can do about that.
Yeah, I was just it was my first time fishing it too, and I was going after trout and I caught a couple, but like with just the creek chub repeatedly just hitting it, like that tail just eventually just came off. And I don't know, it was kind of funny to me because like the creek chubs were not quite big enough to get that whole thing in their mouth to like get the jig
Sure.
hook. So I don't know, it was kind of funny, but no, I think silicone's the way to go, and it's very niche. Like your bait is like really niche to kind of the Great Lakes and um, those gobies and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any plans of, you know, pushing this past the hobby level. So, you know, I think the people that actually want my baits, um, they'll see the value in that durability, see how it fits their niche. You know, at the maximal end, I'm not able to produce more than like 500 of these things a month, if that. So I might get them in a couple local stores that I have connections with around St. Clair or whatever.
Hmm.
But mostly it'll just be, you know, periodic website drops. A lot of like my tackle experience comes from just being an observer, enjoyer of the custom swim bait world.
Hmm.
All those pages. This is, you know, I don't know if you can. This is my pegboard up here. Got all kinds of junk on the. But despite these being, you know, conventional tackle size baits, I think the model of what I'm doing is really more similar to the custom swim bait world. Um,
Hmm. So are you
the
more
limited production quantities and sorry, go on.
are you more so like doing drops, or is your like website mostly like always have something on there?
I mean, I've yet to really sell out the website, so it seems like that'll be stocked pretty well for a while. I am trying to peer. I think some of the smaller sizes I'm going to try to just keep in stock.
Hmm.
Um, the stuff I'm still prototyping, I would love to show off if I can find where I put it. Oh, um, I've got some like genuine swim bait size versions that I'm working on. Somewhere in here, this place is a mess.
Yeah, because I seen on your Instagram you're working on like a
Here we go.
bigger line through. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's this guy. Um, this is hopefully um, my ticket to that 8 pound class fish. I know where some of them are. Just need something to really trigger them. I've thrown a lot of most of the big swim baits on the market that I think apply, and you know, by and large, these fish don't go for bigger profiles. I think just because they're not quite realistic enough, and they're very keyed in on specific forage. So there's a lot of glide baits, you know, mag draft type stuff that I've thrown. I really lean towards those. I prefer the custom resin versions, but in that clear water, the translucent colors are really the only thing that fits the bill. So I've thrown a lot of like the ABS versions of, you know, 250s and other depths, Chad Shad type stuff, and they draw attention. Usually don't convert bites. It takes. I've never cracked 5 on a swim bait, or anything above 5 inches. Um, while meanwhile, like the bigger fish really do go for those smaller, more realistic profiles. So I know they eat big things. I've had fish spit up 8 inch Cisco. 7 inch goby is the biggest goby I've seen in person, and that came out of a 17-inch fish. So, you know, my thought process is if I could get something that actually really truly does look exactly like that, that might be my ticket. Otherwise, I'll just be hitting the right areas with, you know, the smaller baits that are proven to work. I do
Hmm.
think by and large the smaller profiles are really the key for bigger smallmouth, but I think we have a lot of crossover in muskie world, um, especially in some of those goby fisheries. Um, I'm always surprised how much most of my biggest pike, they're all bottom baits. which is really surprising to me. I think the large majority of those baits are, double bladed, whatever, high in the water, flashy, big swimming stuff. And that's mostly just to trigger kind of a predatory instinct. But football jigs have always been my killer for, 40 plus inch pike. So I think this will attract a similar bite down there. Slow crawling in the winter. It's a good point to mention. I mean, it's a goby profile. It's meant to be a goby. There's an incredible amount of fish that fit that similar body plan and general behavior where they're just bottom-oriented fish that hang out down there. You've got juvenile catfish and carp, sculpins, which are, truck people know all about them, but they're rarely seen, but they're always down there in almost every water body, darters, log perch. A lot of my testing of, really the base size and the more conventional ones, that's all been, I grew up fishing Michigan. That's what I've been ranting about, but I've since moved for work. I live down in DC now. So I fish a ton of West Virginia, Maryland, smallmouth rivers, not goby water bodies by any means. And I've had plenty of success throwing these guys down there. So a lot of, multi-forage appeal. Always curious to hear, what people are catching on them. I think I forgot to mention, the intent is the light wire hook.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a heavy wire hook version, which is, more for your conventional casting tackle or for multi-species, heavier leader, tighter drags. Caught redfish on them. That's, especially living here, the saltwater is really what I do mostly here. It's hard to get excited about these river smallmouth just when I'm spoiled with those Great Lakes fish. You up in Michigan, it's a bad day if you don't catch a 5. And down here, a 5 is like, making your week, making your month. So it's just different quality of fish. But the saltwater stuff is really what I've gotten into since moving here. But mud minnows, really similar bottom-oriented fish. Those are really popular bait on saltwater flats. Caught plenty of redfish on these, walleye. I'm really surprised by the interest from the Southern California kind of saltwater group. They love them for spotted sand bass, which is not something I'm super familiar with, but apparently they've got gobies in California, and they love throwing these so far. So
yeah, well, some of the guys like over in like Southern California have kind of swim baits and like not like umbrella rigs figured out for like calico and some of those like other sea bass, because apparently I don't know, the fishing for that is kind of crazy because you're fishing literal like big areas of kelp with heavy gear.
So I grew up down there. Family's all from Michigan. I spent some time there and then moved out there for college and a little bit after. That's really when I kind of got into fishing, but had a little bit of experience with that California fisheries growing up, and then I go back and see my parents and stuff, and I've fished a good amount there. But so there's like those kelp fisheries are almost more like the offshore stuff. It's they're near shore, near islands and whatnot, but that's really like the heavy tackle. It might be a 5-pound calico bass, but we're fishing 80-pound braid because it's kind of like punching, like you're ripping through crazy kelp like that, or some strong currents and big structure. The inshore bass, like the harbors and jetties and stuff, are they call them the Smallies. They're a little bit smaller, but they're more of like a harbor rockfish. So that's, from my understanding, that's what these have been appealing to them for. I can't imagine. Maybe the bigger versions, you could throw in some kelp for calico, but usually they go with more like a streamlined, something that's going to slither through the kelp. Like this has a pretty, wide face and is not going to come through super well.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to see someone catch calico on it, but I think it's probably not I don't want to pretend this is like some magic bullet that's good for everything.
But you fished it in the salt, so I on your personal page you have like some big bull reds that you've caught and striper and cobia.
Hmm.
Um,
That's
like,
our Chesapeake fishery down here.
hmm
That's what I'm doing most of the time when I'm not, back in Michigan.
um, so what are some of the biggest like saltwater fish that you caught on your bait?
So most of the those huge saltwater fish, those are big profile baits. We're throwing something like there's like a 10-inch eel.
Hmm
You've seen NLBN; those are real popular lures. So none of the big profiles. I don't have the 8-inch or 6-inch jig working or anything yet. The Chesapeake, much like most ocean fisheries, like it's very migratory. So we get very seasonal stuff. We have resident fish and migratory fish. So in the spring and summer, it's when the redfish come in. They're coming up the coast. That's Virginia, and they get into Maryland a little bit, but it's really just it's the redfish capital of the world. I don't care what anyone else says. There's more 50-plus-inch fish caught here than really anywhere else, and it's unless you're specifically targeting the smaller fish, it's catching a fish under 40 inches is very difficult. It's harder to catch a small fish or a mid-sized one than a big one. So we spent a lot of the spring and summer chasing those schools of redfish around, or I'll do it from the kayak. So biggest redfish is 40. None of these are on these baits. The appeal for these is the kind of the flats, shallow seagrass, mud flats areas. So this can certainly, with a heavier hook, this can certainly catch a monster redfish, snook, etc. But the fisheries that this would apply to for that is more like your, inshore Carolinas, Georgia, Florida, Louisiana, like you're getting back up in the mudflats. Our biggest redfish here are largely open water, deeper water. And frankly, when you find a school, like it's hard not to get bit. So I might do it for the hell of it, just catch one on one of these, just to say I did. But it's not really an ideal tool for that. So the redfish that have been caught on this are more of the resident, non-migratory ones. Those ones stay in the Chesapeake pretty much year-round until they reach a migrating size. So like 30-inch and below is what I've been catching on these. Striper, no plans to use them for striper, honestly. Doesn't really fit the way that I fish striper or the way the striper eat here, frankly. Trying to think what else. Now, I think they'll probably get a workout when we go down to Florida, just holidays and stuff, but it's kind of like secondarily a saltwater bait for me here. Much more appeal in kind of the southern states.
hmm I don't know. That's so cool though. Like I lived down in Florida for a couple of years, and it was one thing I regretted is not like saltwater fishing enough. But I mean, this one time we were this dude down the pier caught like a 40-inch big old redfish, and I was like, it's a nice fish, dude. And he's like, oh, it's just another day, and I'm like, you suck, because I would have been like so happy to catch that fish. So you just kind of like, it's like be a little more hype about it, dude. That was a great fish.
Some of the redfish schools we've got here, I mean, it's I can show you some videos. There's if you want to look him up, there's a guy named Quentin Turco who has just he's got some awesome drone footage this year. But I mean, you're casting a 2-ounce jig into a school of 5,000 fish, and the smallest one is probably 45 inches, or at least 40. So in many ways, if you're looking for a big one, it really is it's almost an annoyance that you've got, like, it's kind of a recalibration of expectations. Like you've got, 50 plus is what you're looking for, but it's kind of like you've got like a scope on a school of bass, and the small ones keep going for it. It's hard to weed through them. Not much you can do.
Yeah, that was kind of me last month where I was throwing a big 9-inch glide bait, and I had this big blow up, and it's like a 16-inch pike, and I'm like, well, that sucks when I know there's 40-inch class pike in here, and then also big bass.
I mean, it's hard to target them. You know, you can if you're already throwing that big profile. There's not much else you could do to weed out those smaller fish.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's hard. Like you know, if you go from freshwater to saltwater fishing, there really is like a mental recalibration because there's things you're just not going to be considering. Like it's so much more cyclical. Um, between the seasons and like learning to really be in tune with the tide and not just understand how the tide works, like you know you can wrap your mind around that in an hour of reading or whatever, but kind of like getting in the mindset of you know accepting that your bite window is not all day and you're not just like I don't know, it's almost like kind of embracing the fleeting nature of like when is and isn't a good time. It can be frustrating to think like you know, it's almost like a mental clock is in your head and you have to get used to fishing on a timer or just considering more factors and stuff. But, you know, I think people say a lot of the same things about some of those tidal bass fisheries. Those can throw a lot of, you know, pro bass fishermen for a loop. They go to like St. John's River or the Potomac here. Tidal fish are just a, you know, totally different breed,
Mm-hmm.
different mindset required.
No, for sure. Um, so with your bait and making it, you're 3D printing all of your molds?
Yeah, that's right. So CAD design, um, making it all digitally, and then I'm, you know, printing the mold, treating it, doing a little bit of post processing, silicone, direct injection. Honestly, there's other baits that I've made. You know, despite the fact that I make the most of this took so ridiculously long. Getting the right shape. I mean, I had to do a bunch of tricks with the mold, or maybe they're not tricks to somebody who does this more like a, you know, somebody that works for Strike King or something. But like getting the fins to actually do what they're supposed to do, and like spacing that with you know an internal jig head that has to be perfectly situated, clamped in the mold, then also have you know a clearance around the hook for the fins. That it took me quite a while. It's like a 6-piece mold that has to get assembled like a jigsaw puzzle and then clamped together perfectly and then held in place. So trial and error. I actually just threw out. I'm doing a little bit of desk cleaning. This fight still looks like a shit show, but no, I mean I've gotten comfortable enough with how I have it that I've thrown out all the you know version 1 through 20 or whatever. So I've got my finalized process and iterated them a little bit. I've got a box of you know 60 or 70 molds, all the final ones now, but finally felt comfortable with tossing out the old ones. Pretty set on this version.
Mm-hmm. And with the molds that you 3D print, how's the longevity of those? Because like if you make a silicone mold for resin, you know, you can only get so many baits out of that. How does that work for your 3D printing?
Yeah, so as long as you do, you know, kind of the right settings, proper surface finishes, you're not getting residual, or you're mixing your silicone is it's a 2-part like chemical cure addition. So as long as part A and part B are thoroughly mixed, and you're not getting like goops of uncured part A and part B inside the mold, it comes out clean. It's you know it's not a thermal temperature set, so you're not getting any warping of the mold. There's no you know bonding or chemical. I've yet to wear out a mold. Basically, is the short answer. And you know the good thing with not having to you know go get a machine of aluminum or whatever is you know if I break one I've got it running right now. That's a 4-inch one that's printing up. But yeah, durability's been really great in the molds. Totally happy with them. They get a little bit dirty with little bits of like drippage and whatnot. So it's nice working with fresh ones because they're you know, you don't get as much crap on your hands, but like this comes off and this this will inject just fine all over again. Um, so it gets messier as they get more used and like more debris gets caught on them. The stuff, if it doesn't cure, it's such a pain. Like it's truly like getting glue in your hands, and but the glue isn't water soluble, so it just kind of sticks to everything.
Mm-hmm.
So it gets messy, but um, finished product comes out just the same. A little bit of post processing, but it's been great so far.
Yeah, it's awesome. And I was just interested. I feel like most people, when they start doing, like you went, it seems like you went straight into using silicone versus other people would do like plastisol or, something like that, or, when coming into it.
Yeah. Yes, I came at it from two aspects. I mean, in one hand, I could thank my fiance just because she truly hated the smell of, microwave plastisol. She's like, "Don't even think about doing this again." I was like, "All right, I got it. I guess that's out the window." But for how I fish and how I, wanted to use it, like I've had, other silicone baits. I'm far from the first person to do this.
Yeah, because you got like the
Like
burritos and.
burrito, yeah. Like this is the OG, or probably Real Prey is older. Honestly,
Hmm.
they both do a fantastic job. Um, there's some other small companies that have done some silicone stuff. I don't even know if these are still on the market because they got they've gone through like two layers of mergers and acquisitions at this point. But there was a company called Coalition Baits.
Hmm.
They made these awesome, hyper realistic. This is a mullet. They had ladyfish. I think they've got a trout. Pretty sure some Savage Gear stuff is silicone. But this company got bought by 13 Fishing, and then 13 is now a Rapala brand. So I have no idea if these are going to continue to exist. But these are sick for snook and stuff. It's that. There's lost my train of thought. Just like the durability of silicone is just such an appeal to me. A lot of my fishing, especially on Lake Michigan, is kayak fishing,
Hmm.
and that's not. There's pros and cons. I mean, there's times of the year that the kayak is, I think, a huge advantage, and I'm doing better than boats in some areas. In that super clear water, they're so spooky. Just that smaller profile, minimal noise. I can get into some weird areas. The fish can see a boat from Lord knows how far away. But with the kayak, I have so much maneuverability. I can kind of hide the kayak itself, like hide the profile by tucking it in behind rocks. I can literally get the kayak onto the beach and like kind of blend it in with the shoreline, and no big engine sound. Most of the time I'm fishing, I have sonar transmissions. I mean, I might have the graph up or the map, but for waypoints. But I'm turning off the sonar. I want no noise. I've absolutely seen fish free. I mean, one of the things I love about clear water is it's even if you're sucking, it's really hard not to learn because you get to watch the fish behavior and reaction to almost everything you're doing. So times I've been in a boat, especially in the pressured areas that I'll fish, you can, turn the transducer on and off, and you can see the fish react to your live sonar noise. They've heard it before. They know what it means. They don't want to be within 100 yards of you. So, being that I'm up on the kayak, like I don't want to pack, an entire bass boat hull worth of tackle. So, minimizing my equipment. I don't have to bring 5 packs of swim baits. Just one or two can reasonably go the whole day. Of course, bring more than that, but I can't imagine going through more than 5 or 6 a day. So $1,700 could last you a whole season. I lost my train of thought. Yeah, get me on a rant, and I forget what I'm talking about.
No, it's all good. With creating these, do you have? I know you have like specifically the one color. Are you experimenting with other colors, or
Yeah,
maybe
sorry, I
trying to
didn't really
paint them?
show that off. I didn't show that off super well. So I've got my, being that they're like handmade and I'm trying to keep a website stocked, it's it's hard to do a bajillion colors. I mean, it can be colored exactly like soft plastic. Burrito's got the painting stuff down. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I know how to do it. Frankly, I haven't had the desire to do it yet. Maybe on some of the bigger ones where it's maybe worth a little more time. But so for now, I've gone with, um, call it 4 colors that I feel like are the staples for my Great Lakes fishing. Got like a darker hard silhouette, brown goby, a little stronger flash with a little more flake in there. On Magic Johnson, I'm a Lakers fan, but it's chocolate purple gold flake. That's magic to me. Um, got very light sandy goby. This is like high sun, shallow. This is what I'm throwing up on those flats in 4 or 5, 2 feet of water sometimes. The flake is super light, but it's a really light blue color,
Mm-hmm.
which I've kind of chosen because it's just enough flash to get their attention, but it blends in with the surrounding watercolor in the sky, so it's not too garish, not super distracting or anything. So that's one I'm really happy with. Smoke purple, really common bait fishy. Cisco stickleback are a cool species people don't really think about, but I've had spit up in the Great Lakes. Alewife. Alewife aren't really a bottom fish, but it's a good mimicker of those. And I actually don't know if I have any on my little shelf right now. Chartreuse is basically the 4th color so like those are the colors that I'll be, at least for the near future, just having stocked up all the time. Without orders of those, I'll be producing those and putting them up on the website. I have a custom option, which is if you order a minimum quantity, enough for me to actually do a run. Like I won't do it for a single bait. Basically, that would just be far too labor intensive. But like 10 plus, can totally do customs. I've done a few of those already. People with really specific requests. That's a good example. There's a 6-inch. This is the jig hook version. This is really is the same as the other bait, but this one's the line through. There's a 6-inch line through, 6-inch jig. Buddy of mine wanted to throw purple for some reason for muskie, but we'll be doing that sometime this month. But any color is possible. Got chartreuse in the other room. I think for the heavier hook saltwater version, I might tweak the color. I mean, these are very finesse Great Lakes oriented. I think for the power version, I'm calling it the power one, is the heavy hook, but might do a little more white. Like white is something that I've had requested a lot that's just not there yet, because I'm not throwing it personally. If I want something bright, to me, when smallmouth get in that really aggressive bright mood, that's the chartreuse thing for me. It's usually it's on or it's off. There's no like chartreuse is catching a couple fish today. It's really all or nothing. There's like moods or weather conditions when they see chartreuse and they're gonna take off from 40 yards away and smack the hell out of it. Like those are some of the most aggressive bites I get. And then the rest of these are just variations on natural forage. But white probably be in the heavy version. Lake trout version should have white. Matte black. To me, I'm throwing the dark brown. I think it's got a little more general appeal for a little bit darker water. But I mean, the matte black is definitely a player. I throw that in conventional stuff pretty often. Even in clear water or high sun, that can just be a really high contrast bait, and they don't care that it's not natural. It's just a strong silhouette, and they'll go smack that too. So pretty much, I mean, here's a crazy one. Still working on getting a little two-tone, but that's that's the chartreuse belly. Got some orange mixed in there. Walleye colors, funky stuff, but can do all kinds of stuff. The other bait I'm working on at the moment is finesse swim. Well, I guess this is a finesse swim bait, but something more of like a mid column, higher water column, finesse 3-inch swim bait, something for the suspended fish or, um, you know, just straight retrieve. This is more of a dragging, hopping, crawling type bait on the goby, but I don't know if I have an example of it. I'm still prototyping that one, so I've only got single mold of that.
Hmm.
Whenever I'm happy with it, I'll probably start iterating that one. I mean, if I go out for an average day fishing, those are probably the two things I'm catching 80% of fish on. Some kind of, bottom hugging goby bait and some kind of mid column swimmer. Super versatile, does a lot of stuff. So those are the two things that I'm focused on for the most part, and then I'll be finishing up these bigger profiles. I was hoping to have these done this week, but my printer actually had a glitch, and I spent most of last night troubleshooting it. So this looks like it's going well, so I'm pretty happy with that. But it was out of commission for like a day or two.
Yeah, and then you got like on your Instagram you have a color chart where you have indicates like what sizes and
Yes,
what
yeah.
weights.
Mostly because I don't want to make the molds specific to each weight. I
Hmm.
want to be able to cast whatever jig head I want in the mold. I needed a different way to mark them rather than having, like a written indent in the material. So there's just a tiny dot on the belly, little color code. Generally, this is going to be, should be on the bottom anyway. Not that I think the fish are bothered by a single color, but it should be not visible 90% of the time while you're fishing it.
Yeah,
Um,
especially if this bait's designed to be dragged on the bottom, like you said, and hopping it.
yeah, yeah, that is something that annoys me about the sleeper a little bit. You take them out of the package and you've lost what denomination it is. I've actually put them on a postage scale, and there's a surprising amount of variance. So even you should be able to drop them on a scale and say, all right, the 3/4 ounce 3-inch should be 20 grams, and the half ounce should be 14, except they're both plus or minus 2 grams, and you actually can't tell sometimes, even if you weigh. So like sometimes you just have no idea what you're throwing. Um, so that annoyed me quite a bit. So no mystery. Get your color, purple, half ounce. That this is actually a good point to mention. A lot of those baits, the combined swim bait style. What do you call it? The storm, sleeper, gobius, whatever whatever you call the original. I'll say storm did it first probably, but just for simplicity's sake, I'm listing them by the jig head weight. On the chart, I've got what the combined weight is. It's about 1/4 ounce of material, but this is 1/2 ounce of lead, so I call this the half ounce. I kind of think of it like if it was a naked jig head with a trailer attached, you'd say I'm throwing a half ounce swim bait. So to me, that's what makes this a half ounce swim bait, even though the combined package is 3/4 ounce, and if it were a sleeper, they'd say it's a 3/4 ounce bait, which I find kind of silly because it's you know labeled as 3/4, but it's not going to fish like you put 3/4 ounce of lead on there. It's just not. It's much lighter than that. So hopefully people aren't confused by that. I don't think I've tried to explain it pretty well, but we'll see.
No, that makes sense to me because like, say you're walleye fishing, and it's like I am using a half ounce jig head. You don't really include your trailer on that, whether you're throwing a
Yeah,
grub or whatever.
I
So
mean, you
it's
want to
like,
think about it for they're called the casting weight. You don't want to put 4 ounces of plastic. Like, you know, what's a good example? This is an ounce of lead, but that's another ounce of plastic. So I'm not going to cast this on my medium weight rod. But
mm,
um, for how it fishes, like the primary determinant of depth and your water column is going to be how much lead you've got. So I think that's the important part to note.
mm-hmm. And what do you like fishing your bait on? Because you said you don't really go over 6 pound tests too much.
Yeah, so I mean, I'll say 6 pound to so the finesse wire hook. I mean, if you've got a lot of abrasion, you could throw it on whatever leader you want. I mean, you can throw it on 20 pound. It's going to swim
Mm-hmm.
mostly the same, a little bit more drag. But As long as you set your drag appropriately, you could fish it on heavier line. The heavier hook I am throwing on 12-pound line minimum. Go up to 30. You know, I mean, you can go up as high as you want. I can't imagine choosing to go to, maybe for snook, I'd throw 50, but on a 3-inch bait, that's kind of ridiculous. So spinning tackle, I mean, casting is fine. I've thrown the small one. I throw in a little BFS setup. But 8-pound leader is a nice happy medium. 10 is great. Goes down to 6, especially in open water. Like the hookwood stuff, you could fish it just fine on 6. You're just abrasion concerns are, you know, that's separate from the bait. But my favorite rod for the 3-inch is going to be, I mean, it fishes on any medium. If you're going with one of the lighter internal weights, you can throw it in a medium light. My Steez 7.6, you know, I'm going to shut the door real quick. Anyway, Steez 7.6 medium light is like, they call it the one. That's like the greatest fucking rod. I love that thing so much. It's got this crazy, I almost call it a saltwater action, because a lot of saltwater rods, they're a little bit, I mean, it's moderate fast usually, but it's more than that. It's kind of like the blank itself is meant for a really ridiculous casting range, and they'll put a really wide variance. Like some of my saltwater rods up on the wall behind me, it feels like a bass medium heavy, and then it'll say, yeah, this is for 1 to 4 ounces.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's rated like a swim bait rod. So that Steez rod, despite having, you know, extremely light tip, you can throw a friggin' 16th ounce hair jig on that rod. Throw a ton of Ned rigs on that thing. It's rated at 3/4 ounce, and it's not a joke. You can put a 1/2 ounce football jig on it with a full trailer and just cast it to the moon. So, I mean, that thing does everything. I love it for this. You know, you can send it, it's pretty torpedo shaped, fly, even the lighter weights pretty much just launch. But, you know, covering a ton of water in those flats, that's an awesome rod for that. Fish in the river, you know, more typical mid-length, medium rods. Heavier hook, you know, you're going to be just fine with medium, heavy. Depends a lot on the situation. I really do like to specify my rod setups for how I'm fishing. So kind of got I consider it like my open water rods, for smallmouth at least. I've got like open water rods, and then I've got some of my more precise target rods, fishing specific cover, like specific boulders or dock fishing. That's when the BFS rod comes out a lot for me. I've got a couple custom built BFS rods that, you know, nobody uses spinning gear for flipping and pitching for good reason. Like, it's not as accurate. So I find like the kind of the over reliance on spinning gear for that finesse size baits, like great for open water. But if I'm trying to put, you know, my 2.5, 3-inch swim bait directly onto the corner of a dock, I just want the precision of casting gear. So I feel like I can hit that coffee cup size target much better with the BFS rod, and that goes really well with kind of some of my closer quarters kayak style fishing, because I can get the kayak into some weird spots and still not spook the fish, even though I'm, you know, within 20 yards of them. So
What BFS reel are you running?
I got a couple. I had to run my last big trip. I had to run my backup Curado, like the really common one on the market, because I FedExed my box of reels to myself, and they freaking lost it.
Shit.
They lost like 1,000. They actually recovered it. Thank God. This is one of my main workhorse ones. This is a Geckobejan. I got to send this out for some service actually, because I dunked it on accident. But this is actually a saltwater rated BFS reel, which is pretty sweet. Tons of fun on. I think I mentioned before. There's like, you know, you got your resident and your migratory fish.
Mm-hmm.
So in the next month is when our migratory striped bass are going to show up, and you know, we're just far north enough, or just far south enough rather, that it takes really some crazy weather to freeze the Chesapeake. So we fish all winter, So those 40 plus inch striped bass are coming in next month. But then once they leave, spring through late fall, basically, we're fishing the resident striped bass, and those are 30 inches and below. So if you want to go light tackle, I mean, that's a hell of a workout on some of these BFS reels. So this is cool for that. Daiwa's got kind of a 3 reel. They probably got 5 or 6 now, but like 3 of their main ones. There's the super common one is the Alphas. I've got that up on the wall. That's kind of the do-it-all platform. That's like the base frame. The Gekabijin it's like tuned for casting distance and light braid. A lot of these overseas ones, they'll call it the PE special, which just means that like the spool is usually a little shallower because you're getting braided line capacity, and then they've actually the teething on the pawl gear, on the worm gear, is much tighter packed, so you're getting more oscillations of the line guide for every turn of the spool. And what that does is it actually puts a little bit more angle in your line as it's feeding onto the spool, so that you don't get as much dig in basically with light
Mm-hmm.
braid. You put a little bit more like cross, like 45-degree weaves in there, so it's not gonna dig as much. So this is awesome for like open water, a little bit heavier BFS stuff, like 3 to 10 grams, kind of on the border of what's not even really BFS. But and then if you do any trout fishing, like small water stream type stuff, they've got the stream custom, I don't know if they got a variant of this. That's the green one, different breaking profile. It's meant to hit like you can hit a golf ball with your lure, and usually you're using like a 4-foot rod, and you're casting to tiny little holes for trout. Like so, there's 3. I don't have that one actually, but these are my 2 workhorses. Alphas, Gekabijin, Corrado is my backup. I thankfully I had that because that would have sucked. Thank you, FedEx, so much.
Yeah, I've heard like the BFS Corrados are like, I've heard they're much more suited for like power BFS fishing versus kind of like the ultra finesse. You're
Yeah, so
throwing a 1 gram lure.
I can imagine this is my like interpretation of they've got their Shimano executives and engineers in a room in Japan, and they're like, all right, we're going to finally bring BFS to the Americans. They don't really understand what it's for. How do we make sure they're not going to break it? Like, how do we ease them into the idea of this is a very finesse tool? Like, if they sold, they've got the Aldebaran now, they've brought that one over, but I think they knew that bass people were just going to see the word Corrado, they were going to buy it, they were going to put 20-pound line on it, and they were going to break it in a week if they didn't like rigidize it. So that they really did make like, they took a very precise little sports car and they turned it into like a truck and then sold it to the Americans, which is pretty funny. Because I mean, if they used there's like trout spools and there's bass spools. Getting into lightweight stuff, like you have to get more specialized with the ultra lightweight whatever. But if you want to use the lightest possible spool with the lowest startup inertia, it's hollowed out extremely heavily, like it's featherweight. If you put too heavy of line on that, and you try to lock down the drag, or even if you just pull the line will actually cinch and then crush the aluminum of the spool.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, without doing what they did for the Corrado, I think, if they would have sold that trout reel directly to the U.S., some dude is going to put it on his medium heavy, set the hook on a bass and then just crush the spool and like give it a trash review. So I don't know, makes sense for why they did it. I think that thing sold like hotcakes, so successful launch for them. And the people that have a really specific need for the trout type one, I mean, you can always buy JDM. In fact, with the conversion rate, it's pretty great. So I just found the 6-inch I was looking for. It was behind the phone the whole time. This is the more almost finished version of the 6-inch line through.
Mm-hmm.
The hook fits into this little nub up there, protected up top. You can fit a little variety of hook sizes. This is the main thing I'm still fixing. The fin did not inject quite correctly. I think it will still fish fine, but I want to have the full fin profile. And then the rate of fall is actually going to be adjustable with these two little pontoon things.
Mm-hmm.
These are pencil drop shot weights that have little cavities filled out for them. So this is quarter ounce in each side, and that makes it like a rate of fall about 5 or 6. Pull them right out, shove a pair of half ounces in there, gets much heavier. So it's basically like a, preset nail weight pocket is the weighting system for this. But since it's silicone, it's not like, they're not going to wear out and tear out the nail weights eventually. So it's a little bit more durable than that. So it fits this really small hook. I'm excited for this. I'm going to throw this on big bait, but I'm probably going to throw it on 12 pound. I don't know. I might have to go lighter.
Yeah.
In some areas, but I'm excited for this thing.
What hook are you running on that?
This is just kind of a placeholder to test the spacing. I think this is just a size 1 S236, but there's room. You could go back another quarter inch or so before hitting that fin, or you could even trim the fin. So I could, if I wanted to throw this for, redfish or something, maybe up on the flats, or bucket list trip of mine. Have you ever heard of a hoochin?
Not familiar.
How about you ever watched Jeremy Wade?
Oh yeah.
So you've seen the taimen.
Okay, yeah, the huge trout.
Yeah, the world's biggest trout / salmonoid.
Mm-hmm.
So those are in Mongolia and Russia, and you basically can't go there right now as an American. Lord, I don't know if that'll happen in our lifetime. There's some very small safari type trips you can set up for those. But gobies in American waters are invasive. They come from the Black Sea by some pretty disastrous shipping regulations that allowed companies to dump their ballast. They would suck up water to help balance their boat in the Black Sea, drive all the way up, into Lake Michigan or wherever they're dropping off their goods, and then they were allowed to just eject that water. So, really incredible book, actually. I guess while I'm on here, this is worth plugging. Anyone interested in general ecology or Great Lakes in specific, even if you just want fishing info, incredible. It's basically an ecological history of how the Great Lakes came to be, how they are. But you learn a lot about fish behavior and whatnot. But zebra mussels and gobies both came from that same loophole that let people just dump stuff. And obviously the zebra mussels are everywhere in the country now. It's actually the most expensive invasive species. It costs the country about $2 billion per year because they gum up, water intake valves and all kinds of stuff. Those things suck. Another tangent you didn't ask for, but between the line out point on this and the back fin, if you don't care about the look of it, you could fit. This is like a 4/0 monster, something, Even that's probably stupid. That doesn't need to be on there. But like a 2/0, fine. Anywhere from a size 2 to a 1/0 is going to fit pretty well in the 6-inch line through. Had some of my musky nut friends asking for an 8-inch version. I don't know. Maybe a 1-off just as a favor, but I don't think there's a whole lot of. I don't know. Because I'm 3D printing and because it's all done by me. I have a pretty proven design. It's not that hard to iterate and try new stuff. So, if one of my friends wants to pester me enough for an 8-inch or 10-inch, I could do it. It's basically, I take what I've already got, I hit, double the length times 2, print it twice as long, and then, probably wait a day or two. That's print like that. You can see how slow these things work. Whoops. I have messed up. There we are. You have any experience with 3D printers?
Just a little bit, like doing CAD
Yeah.
classes.
So it's basically the bigger the part, the longer it's going to take. So
Mm-hmm.
this is a mold for a 4-inch bait, and that's been printing since last night.
Yeah.
So I wanted to do a 10-inch version. That'd probably be a day worth of printing or something, or 24 hours. But I don't know. If they want to peer pressure me, I'll do it.
Yeah, and I've also, like, when I was living in Florida, I was doing termite inspections, and I was at this guy's house, and he was like, yeah, he had like some Star Wars stuff that he made, and I'm kind of geeky and nerdy, so I was like, oh, this is all cool. He's like, yeah, I 3D printed like a life size R2D2, and was like posting pictures of it, and someone bought it from him, and then
That's pretty cool.
it was really cool, and he sold it for a lot. Like the person that bought it, like bought it for quite a bit of money, and then
Yeah.
Lucasfilms was like, "Nah." When they sent him a letter, like a cease and desist, they're like, "Nope."
Oh, of course.
Yeah, they're like, "We'll sue
Duh.
your pants off if you do this again."
Yeah, should have known better. Disney will get you.
Oh, for sure.
It's not that terribly hard because it's a lot of really popular stuff like that. Probably 3 or 4 minutes of Google searching, you could find a 3D model for R2D2. And the printer, whatever printer you buy, is confined by the size of the injection thing can move.
Hmm.
A lot of them are European, so they're like 200 millimeters in each direction. Like you can build anything in a 200 millimeter cube. But there's softwares if you want to make a giant R2D2, you just say, hey, here's my print size maximum. Here's the model I want to build. Cut it into cubes for me, and you can. So he probably even on a hobby-sized 3D printer, you could make a 10-foot R2D2 and just you have to put the parts together like a puzzle afterward. But you can. That's not terribly hard. Really fun hobby. I mean, it's a bit of an annoying hobby. None of it. I mean, you know how annoying friggin' paper printers are. They're
Yeah.
always jams and ink stuff. There's even less support for a 3D printer. It's kind of like you're committing to buying your own little robot, and there's a manual, but shit will break all the time, and you have to be ready and willing to troubleshoot it. Replacing belts or like software glitches. You just heard me complaining. Mine was broken last night for quite a while, but it's rewarding. You learn a lot. I have a nice technical background, so it's fun for me.
Hmm.
Don't mind it. But cool process. A lot of those model making things, like if you make little miniature figurines, there's two main types of hobby 3D printers. It's called FDM, and it's basically it's like a hot glue gun basically, and it just draws tiny lines and fills up the shape. So with FDM, you are constrained in the precision with which you can build a part. The finest detail you can do is limited by the size of that little string of hot glue coming out.
Hmm.
If that makes sense. And then the other type of 3D printer that's really common is called SLA, and that's there's just a liquid vat of resin, and it hardens when it's shined with a UV light. So they've got these really detailed LCD screen or UV screens, and it flashes a picture of each little layer. So I mean, you can make, this is a pretty good detail. This is down to 0.07 is the millimeter tolerance that I print these with. So it's enough to I've got I'm not sure how much this is going to catch on the
Yeah,
camera.
you got details in the fins.
Yeah,
and...
the fins are striated, and there's little tiny stuff like that. The eyeballs are, they're spherical, but they're cut up a little bit, but you can't even tell. Honestly, I actually really do you could consider it an imperfection. That they call them layer lines. There's little marks of it almost looks like a topography map, but in effect, what it creates is it removes the totally flat surface, so there's no sheen. They're matte right out of the mold.
Hmm.
So I really do believe, especially in the clear water areas, if you've got a brand new, swim bait, plastic, whatever, plastisol, I love to scuff it up. scratch it a little bit, get some salt out, like break up that pure, flat, shiny body.
Hmm.
Um, it's like that immediately. Unless you put flake in it, like there's no light reflected off this. Like it's just totally mute, which big plus for me. Um, but the SLA ones, you can actually, you know, instead of being the size of a plastic string resolution, it's like, you know, the resolution of your phone screen. Like every little pixel is like a little point that it can create. So those are cool. You can a little messier because, you know, you've got a bunch of liquid chemicals you got to work on. But that, if your friend was doing figurines, that might have been what he was doing. Those are really popular for anyone who likes plastisol baits, because, like I said, this is a hot glue gun, so the mold that it's made out of, the plastic is meltable.
Hmm.
You can get higher temperature plastics, and some people have, you know, they've made molds for plastisol on a hot glue gun style printer, but you have to like be very careful of what temperature you're injecting into it, and even then, it's probably just a bad idea overall because it's going to warp, it's going to get soft as you're putting high temperatures onto it. So with the SLA style printer, you can those are chemical cures. You can actually make completely functional plastisol molds, that are rigid and, you know, safe to like 600 degrees or something, like way higher than plastisol temps. So this is great for silicone. SLA is really the popular thing for, if you go on some of the Facebook groups, there's like 3D printing fishing lures pages.
Hmm.
That's kind of how these took off. Actually, I was just working on some versions and I showed it off, and then apparently the group is public or whatever. But a bunch of smallmouth guys saw it and they're like, "Oh my god, give me some of those." So I recently got a website up and running. Um, Still learning how to use that, but it is helping with order tracking. Previously, like, you know, responding to message requests and Facebook Messenger crap, like, all right, now send me your address, and now send me your PayPal, and then I'll go log it in my sheet, and then I'll go take it all to put, like, a very, probably wasted more time doing logistics than, you know, making baits. So automating that in the website has been pretty cool. Hopefully just, you know, more time tinkering and less time printing labels and doing logistic stuff, the business aspect.
Yeah, exactly. What's so with the silicone? What's the cure time on that? Because plastisol, you know, sets up like real
Yeah,
fast. But
yeah. So there's depending on what brand you get, you know, there's a variety of cure times. The demold advertised on what I use is 4 hours. Um, that When they put those times on the box, they're assuming that you mixed it 100% perfectly. So that's the best case scenario, and you're definitely, you're gonna try to do that. You want to mix it as well as humanly possible, but you know, short of some kind of standardized like industrial mixing process they probably have at their factory, you're gonna get little errors and little spots, and as long as you mixed pretty darn well, it'll all come out solid in the end, but it might take a little longer. So I like to wait about double the demold time. So I can do, in theory, I can inject one set in the morning. Um, I could probably take it out in 8 hours. I usually come back at the end of the day before I go to bed, take them all out, do it again, take them out in the morning. So 2 sets a day if I'm not busy or on days that I'm doing it. Um, yeah, the biggest interruption to that is actually going fishing. I could do. But there's quicker setting silicones. I mean, this is the one that I've found the best. Um, I don't want to tell everyone every detail, but
hmm.
you know, you can get silicones that are done in an hour. Um, it's really hard to get the proper consistent. It's, you know, once you've got a brand or product that you like, it truly is like changing the plastisol formulation. So I've got some like the stuff I use in the 6-inch
Hmm.
is not the same as the stuff I'm using in the 3-inch. This is not the same I've always used in the 3-inch. There's a previous version that is, I might not have anymore, honestly. Here's a good example. Here's a new and an older 4-inch. Well, those look the same actually. Basically, there's supposed to be a universal scale of how stiff the final material is supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
And it's pretty close, and it gives you a good idea, but between brams, it might just be wrong. So they call it the shore hardness scale. So you could buy the same rating from two brams, and they're not quite the same. So not every hardness is available in multiple cure times. So the hardness that I've been most satisfied with does not have a hyper fast cure. If I wanted to use a slightly different stiffness material, you can get the cure time down to, I think they say stir it in 5 minutes or less, or it's going to start setting, and you can take it out in an hour, which will be cool. I don't think it's worth compromising kind of the consistency of the design. I don't know. I might have to play with it in the future. I like where they're at, and I also don't think I'm ever going to sit down for an entire day and just print them on repeat for an hour. So the current cure time is working for me. But
Mm-hmm.
if I want like a more of a one-off thing, you could do some faster ones. I wish it were faster. It'd be nice. Pouring lead is real satisfying. You just pop it out 30 seconds and do another one. That would be fun, but no luck there. I think that's also a lot of why, there's a million reasons that silicone is kick-ass for baits, and very few non-custom, I don't know of any industrialized process that they're using silicone. I think it's just impractical. Burrito, I know his custom ones, obviously he does himself, but he's got that what do you call it, joint venture with Buka Baits.
Oh yeah, like the baka burrito.
Bullshad. Yeah, so I'm almost certain that those, I think he partnered with Baka to do, this is all speculation. We don't have any kind of relationship, but the way that, he doesn't do, complicated colors, he might do some two-tone, like top and half and bottom half, but it's all just like flake effects and base coloring.
Mm-hmm.
I assume he's figured out some kind of standardized procedure for doing these a little bit faster, maybe a little bit more industrial scale. Buka obviously pretty damn good at that. I think bullshads are, or whatever version of a Buka bait you've got, it is truly the same quality as any other custom low production quantity bait, and he's just got the best process and the speed, and that's why they're priced as beginner baits, and they're just an unbelievable deal on an amazing bait. So I think he's really good at kind of scaling up those custom processes to a little bit larger market size. I'm noticing, I haven't looked at these too much recently, but one weird thing that I kind of got lucky with, but has actually worked out well, is the injection point that I'm using is on the belly.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I same with where I wanted the color dot. Like if there's going to be a little mark, I want it to be out of sight.
Mm-hmm. Well, then when you
found out,
yeah, like when you're filling it too, like all those detail parts, like the fins can fill in first.
Yeah, so looks like this clamps together. I'm going to shoot in from the bottom. So what I found out, especially with these longer cure time silicones, is that if you put in flake, or if you don't mix color well, it acts like a sediment. The flake sinks. Mm-hmm. So on almost all of mine, the flake is skewed towards the top because it's upside down. And honestly, thank God, that's where I would want it. A little bit this is the bottom bait, so you're getting a little bit down profile. You're going to actually see the flake looking down at it. So that was a happy accident. But, this, I actually don't quite know how he does it. Burrito has a little bit better flake distribution, but you can still see that very top layer doesn't have any. So I would assume he's probably, injecting in this direction as well, but maybe his silicone cures a little faster, so these things don't have time to snowfall to the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, this is the gold standard. Love these things. I kind of don't count it because we have a running joke with some of my friends that your personal best bass, Florida bass don't count. So to my knowledge, like I didn't have a scale, so it's really just a length and a fixtures thing. But like, I think the best largemouth I've caught was in Florida, probably around an 8 or something. It's like 25 inches, but pretty darn skinny.
Mm-hmm.
But that was on a burrito, Baca burrito. So love those things dearly. They're awesome. Caught striper on them too. You know, kick-ass baits. Definitely one of my main points of inspiration for what I'm doing and how I'm doing it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know like with those Baca burritos, those were like specifically made to like go down to Lake Baccarat in Mexico,
Yeah, yeah,
and because I think they're kind of they wanted something similar to like one of those storm. I think whatever one of those storm little swim baits are, and so they wanted something with like kind of a similar action, but like beefed up. So yeah, they're pretty cool. I've had one, and then I traded it, and now I'm like, well, I should get a couple more.
these guys.
Yeah, something like that.
I think it's really funny because obviously they're doing so damn well in Baccarat that they probably wanted the silicone just because, hey, we can't fit a whole 3,700 box worth of storms. We want
Mm-hmm.
one that's not going to break. Um, this is like a classic saltwater bait. These things kick ass. I think my best striper from land was on one of these. The heavy 7-inch, 5-ounce or 3-ounce version. Yeah, these are, I mean, Storm. This is actually, I want to say Tsunami is the same company. There's definitely
Mm-hmm.
some relation there if it's not the same owner, because this is a Tsunami technically. Um, they sell the exact same bait with a different hook. So I think it's just a saltwater branding, and they put a heavier hook in it. I can't imagine it's anything different. Because or somebody just stole their design because it's the exact same plastic shape. Um, yeah, I thought I might do something like that eventually. I don't know. A lot of my kind of ethos in making stuff is like, I'm not trying to make it. It's not taking over my day job. So,
Mm-hmm.
and it's honestly less even about turning a profit than just like kind of help fund my fussing around and tinkering. So there's a ton of stuff I could make, but if I don't see like a void on the market, I'm not going to make it. Um, to me, I know some of the Megabass reps, and I've told them before, like, hey guys, we all know how much the Dark Sleeper is beloved for fish in the Great Lakes, but like, have you thought about just putting a light wire hook version? It would be almost no effort for your designers, and you could just sell it as is. And then even crazier, I mean, I don't think anyone in America buys more Dark Sleepers than the northern Great Lakes region,
Mm-hmm.
or they don't sell the colors that we want, and it's not
Yeah.
just they don't make them. If you look on eBay or the European market, they have specifically painted goby and perch replica Dark Sleepers that you can buy if you're Swedish or Italian, but they just don't put them on the stock list for America. Like, it blows my mind. I mean, that they could change that with the wave of a finger, and suddenly we could have, the colors that I felt like I didn't have in the Dark Sleeper and wanted to fish, and the specific hook and tackle construction that would be gangbusters up there. So if they want to do it, I'm honestly inviting them to put me out of business. I don't want to be. I will happily buy their proven bait if they want to make the version that a lot of people want to fish. But until then, I'm just trying to fill a void. So stuff that I don't want to make stuff just to make it and sell it. Like, I'm making stuff that I think I have no other choice but to make because I can't get it anywhere else or it doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know like Chris Zaldane, he's fishing the Meg draft a lot, and he's like, "Hey, Megabass, I think we should do some of this," and it's kind of falling on deaf ears. And then he's like, "Well, got the
Dropped them.
this is all dangerous swim bait now.
Yeah. I think they are very secure with their place in the market. I mean, I don't know people who work there outside of some regional reps, but I think they're very Japan focused, as they should be. I mean, that's their core audience. Or
Mhm.
maybe the U.S. market outproduces. I don't know, but I think, you know, they don't feel a need to be super responsive to the needs of, niche fisheries, especially when, I mean, it's not like the sleeper sucks. It kicks ass. I mean, I've fished it extensively. I've probably caught, my 7 wasn't on a sleeper. That was something else, but plenty of 6-pound Smallies on it. If they just tweaked it the way I want to, I don't care that they rip. I'll buy 100 of them. If you just friggin' it's a 9-pounder caught on the sleeper this year. Pretty awesome article if you actually haven't read that. Fun write up from the Megabass rep that actually was out fishing it on Erie. So sick bait. I just small difference that I'd love to see, and I ultimately decided to do myself.
Mm-hmm. One thing I saw on your Instagram that you're working on is that you're working up on CAD was a smelt profile bait. I thought that was I thought that was really cool because here in South Dakota we have Lake Oahe, and that's the main forage for smallies and walleye is smelt.
Smelt and emerald shiners. Look at that! My mold just finished. The printer just. I guess I already showed you one of these before, but there's the finished product. We've got your bait. This is looks like I have a little cleanup to do on this one, but awesome. This will be another 4-inch. Got to finish up the jig head so I can get the lake trout model ready, because hopefully I'll be fishing these. I think Thanksgiving I'm going back to Michigan, so great time of year you can actually catch lakers from shore. Have something heavy to hop in the current on some of the piers and river mouths. But yeah, the smelt. I mean, I fish all kinds of. Where's a good example? Easy shiner. Those are kick-ass. I find my fish, or the fish that I'm fishing the most, for smallmouth at least, they're really particular about both the profile and the kick of the swim bait. I can throw a Kitech Fat Swing Impact and catch 2 fish in 6 hours, and I can switch to an easy shiner, doe live shad, something with a really tight, narrow kick, and it's every cast. And the best producing swim baits for me are, they're pretty. Everyone knows about them. Everyone throws them. So I'm excited to have a little bit different profile that I'm doing myself. And then obviously those JDM plastics, like you're just 2 fish tear again. You can use screw lock heads, that helps, but they're still going to tear through in the tail or out the hook. So I had one up here. Do I? No, I think the smelt is still tied. I've got one that I tested the other day. I've got one molding right now, but version 1, pretty happy with it. Might tweak some of the jig head shape, but those might just be a personal fishing thing, because I don't think it does anything new aside from just being silicone. I don't know. Hard to justify. I have enough issues, keeping the goby stuff in stock, so I'd have to see a lot of demand for people to want something else. But that's just another shape that I wanted for myself. Again, maybe I'll be bullied into selling those or something. But,
yeah, I may have to peer pressure you. Like my buddies live on Lake Oahe, and their dad's they're like a huge walleye guide up there. So might have to peer pressure you to sell me some. Get to them.
Screw it. Maybe I'll do it. Yeah, I'm happy with the swim as it is. In fact, I This is it. There we go. Smelt. Working on it. He's drying now. That'll be smelt number 2. Maybe I'll send you that video. I got a swim video with the other one. I have a pool where I live, so especially in the winter when nobody's swimming, it's pretty easy to do swim tests. I think I'm the only idiot up there using the water in November.
Yeah, I was when we lived in Florida, we had a community pool where we were living, and I was trying to convince my girlfriend, it's like, I'm just gonna test some baits up there that I made, and she's like, no. She's like, I don't. She's like, you're gonna embarrass me, and I'm like, I'll be like, I'll just go at a not popular time because it's like, yeah, during the winter it wasn't heated, so it's freaking. Even though we're in Florida, like that pool is like cold.
They sent me a email because they were saying we watched on the security footage that you were. No, it's even funnier than what you're picturing. Because we fish all winter in the Chesapeake down here, and it's 40-degree air temp on a good day, 40-degree water temp most of the time. Dry suit mandatory, basically. And every season, I want to make sure I don't have any leaks, and I'm jumping in that fucking pool in December with my dry suit on, and like sitting in there and like making sure it's not leaking through. And last year they sent me an email. They're like, "Hey, the pool's closed. Why the fuck are you in the pool? Like you're the only resident of this building that didn't get the message to not swim in the pool in December." And I was like, "Okay, it was 5 minutes. It's gonna be okay." But yeah, I was in the pool. I'll be doing it again probably next month. Annual checkup.
That's hilarious. Yeah. Oh man. How else are you gonna test your dry suit though? You know.
I mean, I could go to the water like any normal person. I don't want to go out for an entire day of fishing and then be like, "Oh, just kidding. My dry suit's got a leak. I'm actually not fishing today." So maybe I'll have to strike a deal with the landlord or something. It seems pretty harmless.
Oh man,
It's better than the idiots dropping glasses into the pool in July or whatever. Broken glass in the pool. I'm not hurting anything.
Yeah, I mean, there's this one time that so my girlfriend and I, we were playing around and we had our goggles, and she threw my set to me, and I don't know if I just have a hard ass head or whatever, cause like those goggles hit the back of my head, and that glass in the goggles just shattered.
Oh, they're glass.
Yeah,
Never
so like
that's that. I would have thought plexiglass or something.
well, that's what they were. So I don't know what happened, like how they broke, but so there we were with our last set of goggles at the bottom of the pool, like making sure we get all this little glass out of the pool.
That's a pain. I mean, that's the worst place to just it blends in. It's gone.
Yeah, we were sitting there. We were just like right on the bottom with our goggles, trying to find, or with her goggles, making sure we got everything cleaned up. I don't know. Now we can laugh about it, but at the time I was like, oh, this is not fun.
Yeah. What are Give me a quick overview. Like, what are South Dakota fisheries like? I know very little.
So around where I'm at is like fairly unique. I would say we're like around the Black Hills area, which is this Mount Rushmore area. Super underrated trout fishery. And not a lot of people are throwing swim baits. On Universe, I just connected with this dude who is in my. Is that the guy in Wyoming?
I think so. Ben Linnell.
Yeah. So I follow him, and he does a lot of cool trout stuff on swim baits and fishing for muskie. But it's this guy like right in my area, so I think we're gonna connect up and throw some swim baits for some bass right now.
That's awesome.
But super unique area. We have a lot of big trout down the road from where I live. So the only two places in South Dakota where you can fish for lake trout are in my area. So either I'm gonna try either today or tomorrow. This is my weekend,
Gotcha.
so I'm gonna try to go down the road and uh, catch a lake
That's something
trout.
you've done before, or is this new to you?
It's new to me,
So
so I
lake
got
trout are like, I don't know if fetish is the right word, but I think they're so damn cool.
yeah.
One of like the earliest fishing experiences I had was being taken out on lake trout charter trip in Lake Michigan, um, and kind of just learning more about the fisheries. Like obviously they're native to those Great Lakes areas, and I think that book I showed you, it kind of details what happened to them. One of the first big invasive pushes was when they connected the Great Lakes out through the St. Lawrence River to the ocean. All these sea lampreys swam up,
Hmm.
and the lake trout had no defense, and about 98% of lake trout were killed. And historically, I mean, lake trout they were kind of they weren't the entire food chain, but they were like, there were multiple like little sub niches of lake trout. Like there were smaller schooling ones, and there were like monster, if you see some of those crazy ice fishing videos, there's like the 70-pound pushing 50-inch like mega shark of the Great Lakes,
Hmm.
and they were kind of their own little breeding populations, and there were like 7 different little niches, and like some of them had red fins, and a lot of these just got wiped out entirely by the lampreys, and that like killed off this huge commercial fishery that was actually a significant industry up there, and that sucked for a while. And then coming out of that, when they finally figured out how to eliminate the lampreys, the lakes they basically didn't give the lake trout any time to recover. And this guy who got put in charge of one of the fisheries commissions was just like, how do we get people excited about fishing again? We'll just treat it like a pond, and let's just throw some salmon in there. And the entire salmon stocking program was just one guy thinking, you know what, this will be fun. And so now the lake trout they're strong recovery, but they're just not even close to what they're supposed to be, and they're competing with these salmon. Um, and the salmon are really only propped up by the annual stocking. There's like very low percentage of spawn, um, but the salmon are like the total focus of like half of Michigan and Wisconsin and like parts of Chicago. It's like they love it, and so they probably will never stop the stocking program. But I just think they're targeting the wrong fish. I think the lake trout are so much cooler.
Hmm.
People complain. I mean, salmon attract the casual angler interest really well because they're incredibly predictable, and it's especially for those 2 months a year that like you can't miss them. Like they're in the river right there. Like you're gonna walk, like they'll be in a city and you can just look in the water and the salmon are up the river. Um, but and they fight really hard, and I think lake trout are far more elusive because they're not going to come up right up to your shorelines. And I think the fight is really underrated because what people don't realize about lake trout versus salmon, the salmon is like at any and all sizes, the salmon is a pelagic predator. It swims around freely in the water column, and they have a much stronger control of their air bladder, their depth regulation. So no matter where you catch them, the salmon is pretty much just going to take off like a bullet, especially in the main lake. Like when they're in deep water, salmon just dig and zoom like they call them a silver bullet, just like a freight train. And they get a little different personality when they get in the river. They can do more jumps and stuff, but they're always fast. They're always hard fighting. Lake trout are funny because they're not, since they're like more bottom oriented, like they'll school and they'll eat stuff in the column, but they don't have quite as good a control over their depth. So if they're not like, practically what that means is if you set the hook really good in a lake trout and you get like 3 or 4 reel pumps and you pull that thing 20 feet off the bottom, their air bladder expands and they kind of burp out some air, and they don't, if you're able to get immediate pressure and pull them out of their preferred water column without like a little bit of time to adjust, they don't fight real well. They just kind of thrash and they come up as like a big heavy lump. The corollary to that is if you've got one that's big and strong enough to just not move when you set the hook and try to pull on it immediately, they're ridiculously strong. Oh my god, they're so underrated. It's like a grouper. Um, so one of the guides I know, one of my bucket list trips is like open water, like 20 miles offshore, jigging lake trout on Lake Superior.
Hmm.
I want like a monster one. Actually, I caught my personal best this past May. Um, Caught him in like this was actually this is probably my favorite catch of the year. Um, it's about a 38-inch lake trout, and it was in about 12 feet of water. I found him and I sight fished it while it was moving between two deeper things that were connected by a channel, and it was basically in its little migration route. And I was, just managed to sight fish it, and that was actually on, um, that was on this reel. That was on the BFS, 6 pound line, 25 or 30 pound lake trout. That took a while, but um, so this guide up on Superior, he told me, he's like, the biggest lake trout I ever hooked. He said I never saw it. I had a 5,000 size spinning reel, and I got spooled.
Oh shit.
Yeah, and I do kind of make fun of him because I think that's kind of his fault. Like that's you shouldn't have gotten spooled. Like you could chase it in the boat. Like there's the biggest a lake trout's gonna get is 70 pounds. Like that's a world record fish. And let's say even pushing that. Let's say he caught a mega world record. He caught an 80 or 90 pound fish. Um, that shouldn't spool a 5,000. If you got 20 or 30 pound braid, you've got 400 yards on there. Like you can chase him. So he did something wrong. But even that kind of shows the actual power. Like the big ones, when you actually go target big ones, they are just an incredible sport fish, and they're super cool. So I'm jealous that you're getting to do that real soon. I think you're gonna have a blast.
Yeah,
They're,
I think it's gonna be a grind. I've never gone after lake trout specifically, but this is like
how numerous are they in your lake? They're pretty.
uh they're they're a stocked fish, and so they hold like since the reservoirs are super deep, they hold over really well, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure how like reproduct like how their spawning is, um, but they like I've seen some pictures recently where people have like jigged them up, or recently this like 10-year-old girl like caught one from the shore where I'm gonna be,
Yeah.
and it was pretty decent fish. It was 30 inches, so
Do you have
we'll
like good
see.
water temperature readings on that lake? Are there like buoys or something?
No.
So there's a really good. I mean, you're far north enough. There's a good chance they're spawning right now. They're a fall spawn fish, um, and they're likely to be up on like elevated reefs in like 15 to 30 feet of water. If you can find like chunk rock,
Yeah.
deep water access. If you have, I mean, obviously they eat like all kinds of soft plastics on jigs. Um, Jerk baits would be pretty fucking cool if you got them shallow enough. You've seen the clickbait
Yeah.
sonar.
Yeah. Yeah.
Daniel's from not South Dakota specifically, but I want to say he lived in Wyoming.
I think
I don't
he's
know.
like, isn't he from like Montana?
That's it. Yeah, excuse me, Montana. Um, I think similar reservoir situation to what you've got. Um, I know he meant these to be multi-species, but they're tons of fun and they kick it. He's caught plenty of lake trout on his. Um, awesome. I don't know if you have one. I wish he hasn't been making them as much recently,
Hmm.
which is a bummer. I love them. They're
Yeah.
so good for our striped bass fishery, and I'm so afraid to throw them because it's like a lipless crankbait. I mean, it's not. It's more like a. You're familiar with how they work or like what it does?
I'm not as familiar with the clickbait or like the sonar ones, but
Yeah.
like I've been more interested in his like new glide bait that he
So
that he
imagine
made.
these. I love these because imagine a bull shad that's forward weighted and has a swimming motion down.
Okay.
So you can fish it in any depth, fish it vertically, fish it, cast and jig. I've caught lake trout. I mean, past a certain depth, it's impractical because the sink rate is kind of fixed. Even if you want to drop like a bell weight off the front treadle or something, it's still good. Like past 100 feet, like do you really have the patience for that? Usually no, but like I've caught some deep water fish on these striped bass up to like 50 feet. But I'm always scared to throw them because it's a lipless shaped bait. It's a multi-joint swimmer that's getting near the bottom, and like it's very. I'm scared to snag it.
Yeah.
I've lost a few, and they're not cheap. He's talked about making an ABS version, or at least that was explored briefly. Honestly, I'd love to make my own version of this. I don't want to rip it off directly, and I certainly don't want to cut into his sales. So maybe I'll talk to him. I don't know, just for my own use, because I've got so many times I'd love to throw it, and then I'm terrified of losing it. But killer bait, if you can find him on the market, he feels like he's kind of phased it out. Like maybe it wasn't selling as well as he wanted. I thought they were selling like crazy. I bought a ton of them. I mean, all drops have sold out. He's made some. I think this is actually the mini, but he's made some mega profile ones too that I've been able to get.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm pretty stoked to like target these lake trout. I got some. The water visibility is really good. Like you could see really well, and like it's pretty clear. So I got some spots to like hit up there, and I'll be throwing some swim baits and some soft plastics. But as far as like stuff, so I like throwing. I'll probably bring my BFS setup. That thing's pretty sweet. Not gonna target the Lakers on it, but like there's also like other good trout in there, and there's I think they just stocked walleye in there, and there's mega perch in there.
BFS trout, I think, are one of my win. Like if we get blown out, a lot of our most of my focus in the winter is striped bass.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably my second favorite fish to smallmouth. But super weather dependent. If it's blowing 30, you're not gonna. It's sorry if that's Saturday. That's your day off. Like you can't fish. So some of the other winter fisheries I do here, brook trout up in Shenandoah National Park, just gorgeous area. But anyway, get the 2.3-inch version for some brook trout on some BFS gear is probably in the cards for me over the next month or two.
Yeah, so my buddy that lives on Lake Oahe, him and his son came out, I think it was over a month ago, and his son caught a 21-inch rainbow on one of those little storm, or no, it was like a little Berkeley swim bait. And so I think like your little 3-inch gobies would be killer, especially a lot of bottom, like
especially the reservoir type fisheries. Some of the shallower streams, it's tough to fish jigs like that. Like even throw trout magnets and stuff, but a 64th ounce, like if you're only in 8 inches of water, that's still pretty darn heavy. This thing would be dragging bottom. We have a lot of shallower like mountain streams.
Mm-hmm.
The trout fisheries we have around here, if it's not the natural streams, they're all just like really stupid stocking programs into like lakes that they shouldn't be in just over the winter just to keep fishing interest up, and they're all dead by spring or summer or whatever.
So we're high enough in elevation to where all of our lakes are considered alpine lakes.
Yeah.
And so with the stocking, there's some natural reproduction, and then our holdover on our lakes is really good. And we have a lot of naturally occurring streams here where there's trout natural reproduction supplemented by some stocking. And other than that, like here in South Dakota, like walleye's big, smallies, pike. Lake Oahe has salmon that they stock, kind of similar to what the
What
Great
what
Lakes.
fish?
Oh shit, it's like I don't know, it's king
How
salmon
big
or
are they?
they get a pretty good size. My uncle used to go to Lake Oahe all the time and troll for them, but like Lake Oahe's deep enough to where like it'll support salmon okay, it seems
Yeah.
like. But yeah, like walleye's huge, but over on the eastern side of the state where there's glacier lakes that have been carved out, those are like huge smalley spots.
My fiance and I are working on getting through every national park. Um, so let's say, like, what if you were me and I was visiting South Dakota national parks? What am I packing? I'm expecting more lake or river environment trout.
Okay, so our national park out here is Badlands.
Yeah,
There's no fucking fishing around there, dude.
awesome. Just what I wanted.
Okay, so but you're an hour away, hour and a half away from, you know, Mount Rushmore. And
We'd probably
so
make it like a week long, like three state road trip and try to hit 4 or 5 of them. So
yeah, cuz
what
if
would be like in a so Rushmore, Badlands would be in
so
a radius, and then
so in this radius you'd have like Mount Rushmore. Are you going to include national monuments in this road trip?
if it's convenient, maybe
Yeah,
going out
cuz
of the way to see the.
yeah, cuz like Devil's Tower is as a national monument, but totally worth going to. It's
Okay.
really cool. Um But at, like Mount Rushmore, there's a really nice lake over there. Has a regular trout stocking program, and there's mega trout in there, like 25-inch rainbows in there. Um, but yeah, if you're gonna be in this area, just hit me up and I'll get you on some good trout fishing waters. So I would bring something like BFS oriented, but then
More
um,
conventional.
yeah, then a more conventional setup because we don't have like a ton of smallmouth or largemouth around here, but like the largemouth lakes around here have trout in them, and there's some like northern Midwest trout eaters,
Gotcha.
40-inch pike, stuff like that.
Very cool. So I think we almost did that this summer, and we pivoted and did Washington State instead. But in the lead up to that, I was talking to Ben about kind of similar questions, like
Hmm.
what should be in the bag. Sounds pretty familiar. I think
Yeah.
that's
Well,
nice to have consensus.
yeah. Well, like, dude, you could catch like you could grind it out and catch, because he catches like trout on depths 115s and cool shit like that. I've only
Hmm.
caught a couple that way, but it's a grind. And I've had like I have a gray sleeve finesse shad,
Yeah.
and you'll have swipes and a lot of big follows on that with some bigger
Oh,
trout. But yeah, it's a grind, but it's super cool, especially when you know the dude down the shore is fishing like power bait and you're throwing a depths 115.
when I travel, I heavily skew towards like I just want to catch, or I like kind of mentally the goal is like I just want like a cool, memorable fish that's like representative of each area. So like we went to Washington. I got a steelhead. That was awesome. I don't care that it was a micro steelhead. Like it's more about the experience and like. So usually I'm not packing the big swim bait stuff. Like it's rare that I'm traveling and trophy hunting. Usually those aren't real conducive to one another.
Yeah, a lot of my trout fishing around here is now BFS, but it's how I tailor it to, and I have this Airbnb experience where I take people trout fishing, and
Oh, cool.
a lot of my trout fishing is downsized bass fishing techniques. So like small paddle tails. I have uh, this company called Aerobaits. This
Why
guy,
little the raptor?
yeah, no, it's not the Raptor. It's Aerobaits
Oh,
Tiny Glide. It's a little resin one.
what is
I
the
think
raptor?
I think that's 3D printed, honestly. I
Oh, cool.
I
I'm familiar with Arrow one way or the other. I don't
y-
remember the exact names, but that's awesome.
yeah. Yeah, the Tiny Glide is super fun for trout as well. So like little paddle tails, little glides, um, the little Z-Man chatterbaits, the mini ones.
Hmm.
I kind of have that in place now for an inline spinner, except their trailers for their flashback minis are just trash.
Oh, those are a joke. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
they're
You
tough.
I just throw like just like cut down a tiny fluke a little bit and put that on as a trailer. It works real well
On the flashback or the
on the flashback minis.
which one is the really crappy little Z-Man chatterbait? Or you're saying the trailer that comes with it is crappy?
Yeah, yeah. Like the on the flashback minis, the trailer is garbage.
Yeah, it comes with that little funny clear minnow looking thing.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I thought you were saying the actual bait, like the
Oh,
jig head
dude.
stuff.
No, like the actual bait. I love that thing. I've caught a lot of
Gotcha.
trout on it.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Uh,
You got any like last questions, things we didn't cover? Because I think I probably got to get back to. I've got a meeting at least in 10 minutes or something.
no, I think we're all good. Like we probably could have spent
What
several
what
more
haven't we
hours.
covered in Lord knows?
Yeah, yeah, we covered a lot, and we could have spent several more hours talking about fishing. But dude, like if you're out in this area, just hit me up because I'll put you on some good fish.
I love that. I mean, sooner or later, it's on the list. We will get to all the parks. I don't quite know when because next summer we got like wedding and then most of our like my PTO tied up in honeymoon stuff. So I don't know if we're gonna get to travel much next year, but it's eventually.
Uh huh. No, that's sweet, dude. But yeah, just let the people know where they can find you at, and um, yeah, we'll wrap it up then.
Awesome. Yeah. Website recently launched hatchmatchbaits dot or the Shopify link. Large majority of information, swim videos, color stuff. The website's really just a conduit for order tracking stuff. Almost
Hmm.
everything else is better seen on Instagram. Hatchmatchbaits. Kind of surprised that name wasn't already taken, but that's my name, so nice little play on words. So I'll be posting mostly like significant restocks. There should be some holdover on the website regardless, and then updates for the larger profiles. Stuff that's I've had interest that's not quite ready yet, like these line throughs. Smelt darn close. I should say close to fishing because I'm not gonna just start. I'll share them with some people, but I don't think I should. I don't believe in just selling stuff sight unseen, unproven. So it's nice to go through some testing first. Um, Sooner or later, I'm gonna do kind of a bigger giveaway thing, just kind of a attention. You know, I got to decide how much, how big of a package is worth, getting people excited for. But it should be that, and we'll run some contests with. Really want to see someone crack a 7-pounder on one of these baits, so I'll have to put a little prize package together for that as well. So, restocks, new colors. If you have a custom color request, that's also best done on Instagram. Really, any and all questions. That's kind of the home for most information, and then the website. So, appreciate you having me. You know, burned through quite a lot of time. Hope we covered everything.
Oh, we covered just a ton of stuff. You were very articulate on how you explained stuff, and it was like really appreciated.
Stuff with the
Yeah,
rabbit holes, a little like ADHD, hard left into another topic, and yap about something else.
no, it was all great. I really appreciate you coming on,